short because we want things fast and we want things now, okay? And so this past week, me and Miranda headed out of town for about a week or so. We ended up making a crazy financial decision by going to Disney World. Okay? Yeah, she's laughing because she knows what I'm talking about. So we decided this year, Miranda goes, we had all the money saved up for our trip. We've been saving for a good while now, and she comes to me and she says, hey, we can get this Disney credit card that has Mickey and Minnie and all the fun little characters on it and everything. And she's like, you can get a credit card and you get like 10%, 15%, whatever off almost everything in the park. Even your room stay, all restaurants, all this stuff's like 10%. I'm like, that's not that much. But it adds up, right? I was like, okay. So we got this credit card. We had all of our money in a different account. And at the end of the month, when we got back, we were going to pay it off, right? Easy. I remember while we were down there, me and Miranda about every day would get into a small little fight. Because, man, let me tell you something. When you got a credit card or a debit card, it's easy to go somewhere. Boop. Whoop. It's easy to stick that thing in that machine, right? You don't think about it. Now, if you had you some Ben Franklin's, you had you some money, and you handed it to that person at the cash register, there's a psychological response that happens when you see that $100 bill go to something else. I want that. When you just got that card, boop, and every day, a bottle of water, $4. Boop. No kidding, $4. You go watch a character show. If you don't know what a character show is, it's quite comical. It's quite ridiculous, actually. It's where you go have breakfast, just normal breakfast food. You can't mess breakfast up, man. We had a little bit of that tonight at our meal. It's hard to mess up eggs, bacon, sausage, potatoes, all right, and waffles. That's what these meals were. And then they had these certain characters that would come out, like Mickey and Minnie and Donald and Stitch and all these people, right? And so I would get the check because I had the card. $131 for breakfast. Breakfast. I said, baby, you realize we can just go off the property and go to Waffle House for $30 with all of us. She said, but you're getting the character experience, Brian. Let me tell you something. If you've ever been to Waffle House, you'll see some characters. Just give it time, especially if you go around 2. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Even here in Cleveland, you go 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm not telling you to go do that, but you do. Hang in there just for a second. Miranda has sent me videos of fights that would happen between people at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning in her hometown in Waffle House. There's a whole YouTube channel about this stuff. And so we could have paid a quarter of that money by just going to Waffle House. But it's about the experience. Anyway, while we were there at Disney World, as I'm talking about shortcuts here. I don't like standing in line. Anybody like standing in line somewhere? I hate it. I got ADD really bad. And if you got ADD, one of the worst things in the world is standing in line. You don't like be behind somebody in traffic. If they're going 85, you want to go 90 because you can't stand having them in front of you. Some of y'all laughing, you know what I'm talking about. If you go to a buffet, CC's or something, sorry, old lady, I'm passing you. You're in the breadsticks, I'm going to move to the pizza, right? And so I don't like waiting in line. And so what Miranda had, she had this great idea. She said, they got these fast passes. And you get in these lightning lanes. I said, what's a lightning lane? She said, it's these lanes that you get into, you pay extra money, and instead of waiting in line, you get to go straight to the front. But you got to pay. Boop. I don't know how much it was, but I'm just throwing a number. About $200 a day. It's probably more than that, but that's what I thought it was. And so when it's 95 degrees outside and you're sitting there and there's a line for this one ride, it's 90 minutes long. The line, not the ride. The line. And it's way back there. You park the stroller and you're just walking. You're walking all the way to the front and you're passing everybody. And everybody's just sitting there looking at you. You know, wishing they had a lightning lane. And Lily, if you saw her, she kind of felt bad because she was like, because people just give her dirty looks as we were going in front of them. Hey, pay the price. I paid to get myself up to the front. I'm paying for my time. I'm not going to wait in that line for 90 minutes. You may, I'm not. I took a shortcut. Instead of waiting 90 minutes, I got on that ride in 2 to 3, maybe 5 minutes at the most. I took a shortcut. Can I tell you, friends, there's no shortcuts when it comes to your recovery. As much as you might like to think that sometimes, and I do as well, there's no shortcuts. Sometimes you have to do things and you have to do the hard work. And when you're living one day at a time, it's easy to sit there and take shortcuts. What's the fastest way to get there? You know? Well, how quick can I get this over with? You know, the Bible talks about, Jesus talks about this in Matthew 7. He gives an illustration of 2 different gates. One is narrow, that he says very few people enter it. But then he said there's a wide gate where everybody else enters that. What he's talking about is you having faith in God and lasting till the end is oftentimes seen as very narrow, what a lot of the world doesn't want to do, because the majority of the world wants to take the shortcuts in life. But can I tell you, sometimes we've taken shortcuts in our life. We've taken them with our families. We've taken them with our work. And when you start to do those kind of things, what happens is you begin to interfere with your integrity. And when you learn to take the quick way out instead of following something through, you're cheating yourself. You're cheating yourself. So that is why I say taking shortcuts is a pitfall. Because if you're not careful, it will lead you down a pit when you begin to take shortcuts. I heard a sermon a couple years ago by a man named Buzz Williams. Buzz Williams is I don't know where he's coaching right now. I thought he was at Texas A&M for a while. He might be at Virginia Tech. But he's a head basketball coach. He grew up with Pastor Chris Moody. He was the former pastor of this church. They were friends together. And Buzz went on to become an NBA, not NBA, but a national a college basketball coach, Division I. At one point, he was at Marquette years ago, took him to the Sweet 16, I think maybe even the Elite 8. So he's had a lot of success. He's a leader of young men. He came to Cleveland, and I remember him telling a story of when he was in college. He went to this small, I think it might have been even a small community college or a Division II college, and he went to the basketball coach, and he said, "Hey, coach," he said, "I want to do anything I can to be on your staff, whether it's the manager, whether it's whatever it is. I want to do everything I can to be on your staff." And so what he did was he said, "Look," he goes, "if you want to be on my staff, this is what you need to do." He said, "Every day I need you to sweep the floor. Get you a broom and sweep the floor. Go up and down the court sweeping it every day, after every game, before every game, after every practice." And so that's what he did. He came, he went down, he came back up, he went down, he came back up, and he kept doing that for so long. And then eventually what happened was he came to a point where he goes, "Okay, I'm ready to be on the staff." He said, "Coach, I'm ready. Are you going to bring me on staff?" And the coach goes, "No, I'm not." He said, "What are you talking about? I've done everything you've asked me to do." He said, "Yeah, you did, kind of. But there's one thing that you did is you cut corners. You missed the corners. You got the main part, but when you got down to the corners, you cut the corners. And I can't have someone on my staff who's going to cut corners in their life. Have a good day. Pretty harsh words, but he said, I learned something from that. He said, where are we cutting corners in our life? Where are we taking the shortcuts? Because it's not easy to play the long ball. You know, it wasn't easy when I was training for that 5K to tell Miranda, hey, look, I'm on the way back from work. I'm going to stop at the Greenway because I got to get a run in. I hated it. I also loved it. Had a love-hate relationship with running, but I stuck with it. I knew that there wasn't I knew that I just couldn't show up that day and run a 5K. That I had to put in the work every single day or throughout the week to make it. And that's how our recovery is. If you think that just because you say you're in recovery that that's enough, I promise you, my friend, you got to put in the work. And recovery is work, all right? You got to work the process. The second pitfall tonight is, I talked about this earlier, complacency. Complacency is a state of listless passivity in which you find comfort in the mediocrity and the status quo while you indulge your own whims and feel your own passion while your own passion for God begins to fade away. Complacent. You find yourself in a place where it's just the same old thing every single day. The same old thing. Complacency. I don't know if Miranda wants me to share this, but I am. It's okay. I'll get yelled at later. It's all right. Miranda and I have been married 15 years. And we've had a good marriage. We've had ups and downs. We've had heartache. We've had, a lot of forgiveness. A lot of, at times it's not perfect. But she came to me a few months ago and she says, hey, I want us to try this app called the Paired app. Paired. Paired. And what it is, every day, you pay like $40 a year or something like that, and it sends you and your spouse or your partner, it sends you questions. Stuff that I would never ask her, and she'd probably never ask me. But ask you questions, and it gets you talking. Now, some people, I shared with some of the guys here, they're like, I would never do that. Because I don't want to know what my wife will say. But she goes, we need to try this. And I was like, well, you trying to say our marriage is on the rocks? She goes, no. When something is good, it can always be better. Because sometimes in life you get complacent. And sometimes it takes someone to identify that something is complacent. And when you get complacent, you begin to just do everything you can. Just do the status quo. Just do whatever you need to do to get by. And especially if you're married. How many of y'all are married? A few of you. You ever felt like sometimes in your marriage you're more like a roommate? Am I the only one that's ever felt like that? You feel like you're more of a roommate than you are a spouse to each other? What happens is you become complacent in your marriage. It's just doing the same old thing every day. And so what happens is somebody's got to say, look, what are we going to do to get ourselves out of it? Maybe we need to take a trip. Maybe we need to go on a date night, schedule dates. Maybe we need to do this. Maybe you need to do something sweet for your spouse. I'm trying to help somebody in here, okay? Sometimes you need to show more words of affirmation to that person. Sometimes you need to do this or do that. But when someone identifies as something that's complacent, you have to be able to identify it and work your way out of it. And sometimes it's not overnight. I have to admit that Paired app has really helped us to be able to communicate even after 15 years of marriage. To talk about things that we never talked about. That's just something small. Think about it in your life. Whether you're trying to lose weight, stay sober, trying to deal with depression and anxiety, it's easy to get complacent. But what are you going to do to work yourself out of? What do you got to do to put in place to get yourself out? The third thing is this. The third pitfall of living one day at a time is when you get to a place where you just do things on your own and neglect everybody else. You know, I've seen that. We got 10 years of recovery ministry here at South Cleveland right now. We're about to have our 10-year anniversary here in August. That's pretty big. And I have seen a lot of people who get gung-ho in 10 years, get really excited about recovery. 30 days go by, man, they're doing awesome. 60 days go by, they're involved, they're going to groups, they're joining a process group, they're coming on Saturday nights, they're coming to church on Sunday morning, even if it's not here at South. They're doing everything you need to do. They're getting connected. 60 days go by. 90 days go by. 6 months comes along. You don't see them anymore. They just stop coming. Why is that? No, it could be a lot of things. And there's one thing I want to address here. Because as I was going to work this morning, I feel like the Holy Spirit put this on my heart. Because a lot of people, and I'm sure a lot of people in this room, even the few that are here, there's oftentimes this term called church hurt. And we don't talk about it a lot. But there are times when we have felt hurt by church. Now that is true. There are people in church, there are people at your work, there are people in the world that at times will say things and do things that will hurt you. I've had people that I hadn't seen in recovery alive for maybe 6 months. They come to recovery alive. They sit in there. Maybe we got some newer folks that have come in since they left. And some people a person or two will just look at them. And then they'll look at that person and they're like, and in their head they're thinking, this is where the enemy starts to deal with them. Nobody likes you. You haven't been here in 6 months. I bet they think you relapsed. They don't like you. You need to get up and get out. Don't come back. The enemy of your soul will whisper to your insecurities, will whisper to your pain. And can I tell you that I bet you 9 times out of 10 it's a lie. Are there mean people out there? You better believe it. But what I have understood and what I have seen, it wasn't that the fact that nobody did anything to her. Oftentimes those people were looking at her because they're just trying to say, who is that person? I'd like to go meet him. And I've had people say that to me. And the next thing you know, I get a message or I get a text and say, you know what, Brian? I'm just hurt. I came in 5 minutes after worship. I left 5 minutes before the service ended. And nobody talked to me. I wonder why. I'm not trying to be mean when I say that. But Pastor Lipsy says this all the time. If you want to be a friend, you got to be a friend. Look, if I haven't talked to you in 2 weeks, understand I have not been here either. I've been living my best life with Mickey. I haven't been here. So just because I haven't texted you and say, hey, where you been? You don't know the whole story. And what happens is we build up anybody ever build up an argument in your head? And when you're approaching someone, no matter who it is, you've already got this battle in your head when you've never talked to this person. You see, that's what the enemy of your soul wants you to do, is to build this fight in your head where when you reach that person, no matter what that person says, you're going to think what's already in your head. Nobody loves me. And I have seen the enemy ravage people in their minds. And what he does is he begins to take them away from their connection. He begins to take them away. That's why I'm a firm believer that COVID was complete from the pit of hell. I saw more relapses. I saw more people die, not because of COVID, but because of the things that happened because of separating ourselves from people and the things that we know. Listen, do you know how difficult it is to come into a sanctuary of this size and to speak into a camera? And there's nobody in the sanctuary, it's just me. Man, you feel very lonely. You feel like is anybody on the other side of there listening to me? I know. We all went through it. But can I tell you that when the enemy begins to take you away and you begin to depend on yourself, I'm telling you, you need to watch. He'll tell you things and whisper things to you that you will never go back. And Pastor Lipsy always says this too. Maybe you've heard him say it. If you ever find a perfect church, don't go there. You'll just mess it up. I'll mess it up. Okay? Because none of us are perfect. They ain't perfect. Okay? But can I tell you, here's the hope. Some of you have been hurt deeply by people who confess to be Christians. I'm one of them. But can I tell you from experience, the same thing that hurt me, that the enemy used to hurt me, people, is the same thing that God used to restore me, was people. There are good people in this building every Thursday. Don't listen to the enemy to tell you that because you didn't show up or nobody reached out to you doesn't mean you're not loved. Okay? Don't ever believe that lie. I haven't spoken to Pastor Lipsy in over a month. But that doesn't mean he doesn't care for me. I'm on his staff. I was gone for 2 weeks from church. I was at Disney World. He knows that. But he didn't either call me, hey, Brian, it's all about you today. How are you? No. He knows where I'm at. He knows what's going on. But he didn't need to call me. And I'm even on his staff. Listen, guys, don't let the enemy speak to you and tell you the lie that nobody cares. Don't believe the lie that God doesn't even care, because he does. The last thing I'm going to talk to you about, I'm going to let you go, is the pitfall of comparing yourself to other people. Of comparing yourself to other people. Galatians 6 says this. Paul says, each one should test their own actions. Then they can take pride in themselves alone, without comparing themselves to someone else. For each one should carry their own load. We can easily find ourselves comparing our journey to others and wonder why I'm not further along. You don't know that person's story. You live your own story. You know? When I think about Pastor Lipsy, and he's someone that I look up to, he runs Ironmans and marathons. It's easy to look at that person and compare my life and my own fitness journey and thinking, man, look at that guy. I'm never going to get there. But can I tell you, that man wakes up early, and goes running. It's what he does. You see, the world is out here doing one thing. And if you want to get to where you want to go, sometimes you got to do that thing you don't want to do. Can I tell you that sometimes in life I've learned, and then I know this is online, please forgive me, but sometimes you got to do the things that suck. When you're trying to go on a diet and eat better, sometimes you got to eat those Brussels sprouts. Sometimes you need to resist that chocolate cake. Sometimes you got to resist those chicken nuggets. Sometimes you got to resist the chips, the ice cream, and get yourself up and go walking or go do this or whatever. You got to get yourself out of this complacency. And what happens is, when you look at your recovery, when you see somebody who has 3 years sober, or 4 years sober, and you just got 3 days. You got 3 days. You know how much of an accomplishment that is? Especially if your drug of choice, and I know I'm just talking about drugs here, but I'm talking about any hurt or habit in your life. You know how hard